So in Figure 5.14, we have something that is fairly commonsensical. So this makes sense in terms of what we know about the world. But it's something that for a long time we really couldn't quite get a grasp on, and that is this idea of what we call preferential flow. And preferential flow was the movement of chemicals far beyond what we know that they should move, far beyond where we know they should move, or the fast movement of chemicals down into the soil. So we know, for instance, this spray truck. Let's say it's spraying some weeds here, and it's spraying a chemical. So see these nozzles here. It's spraying a chemical, and we know that in the soil, this chemical should not move very fast, right? So it's got properties that make it stay in an area of soil for a long time, and we know that this was probably the case. What we found was that we would spray this chemical on here, and all of a sudden we'd start finding it coming out in the groundwater, and we scientists, soil scientists, the soil world, said to themselves, hey, that shouldn't be happening, because we know that if we spray this material on the soil, it should stick around here for a while. It shouldn't move. It shouldn't move out of the soil, and maybe not even, depending on the chemical, maybe it shouldn't even move with water out of the soil if it's attached to the soil in ways that we think it is. Okay, but what happens when you, for instance, have this application and it doesn't have time to move down into the soil, so you get a rainfall and you move that into, let's say, a ditch? Well, that's not a huge deal, because the ditch should be, if we got an ideal ditch, it should be sealed properly, and not leaking or things like that. But what we found was that these cracks in the soil would allow this chemical to get down into the soil, and so what we would call this is preferential flow, which just means this material got into the groundwater through a route other than regular movement of the soil. So sometimes this can be nitrogen that we put on fields, for instance, over here, and earthworms that have deep burrows in the soil, and they come back up and they go back down, and they come back up and go back down, and that nitrogen or that phosphorus that we're putting on the soil can move straight down to the groundwater through those wormholes and clay, cracks in the clay and those sorts of things. So preferential flow is a fancy word for moving a chemical very fast through the soil that isn't necessarily the natural way for it to move through the soil.